Okay, this is lesson 6. Now, I really highly recommend you use a place value chart when you're comparing decimal fractions. And we're going to start with this one right here. Now, this is a decimal comparing a decimal, so we can just place it in the place value chart. And this shows a misconception as taught in lower grades. They say that the number with the most digits is the largest number. In that case, we would say that this one was a larger number, but that's not true. Now, the best thing to do is you put a placeholder to make them both of them identical. Now you can see that this is 16 and 450 thousandths, where this is 16 and 454 thousandths. Now, what we do is we look starting on the right, excuse me, all the way on the left, and this is the tens place. They're both the same, so we got to go next place value. 6 and 6 in the ones, we go next place value. In the tenths, both fours, go next place value. In the fives, next place value. And the last one is 4. So we can see that this one here, the one we marked X, is the larger number. So up on here, we can say, well, I'm going to put it in here so we can see it because it's better when you read it. And the chevron that looks like an L means less than. So 16 and 450 thousandths is less than 16 and 454 thousandths. On the second one now, I'm going to go ahead and put the place values in. And I'll show you why in a second. Now they have symmetry, so on the other side is 1/10, 1/100th, and 1/1000th. Now let's go ahead and place our first one in, which is 0.83. And the second one says 8300ths. So I'm going to put 8300ths in here, but we know we cannot leave both digits in the same one. So this is actually 8 groups of 10, so I'm going to move it to the next place value. And that leaves a 3 here. Now I'm going to place a 0 in to make sure both of them are identical, and we can see at this point that they would be equal to. And the same thing goes with C. If I put 205 thousandths, and this is the tenths, 100ths, and 1000ths. This one over here says 205 thousandths. So if I put 205 here, I cannot keep all of them in there, so I'd leave the 5 there, the 0, and the 2. So they would once again come up saying they were equal. Okay, on the next one, once again, they're both decimals, so we're going to put 95 and 0 and 45 thousandths. And we place the second one, 95, 545 thousandths. If we look at this, starting at the largest digit, the 9s are the same, so we go next digit. 5s are the same, so next place value, and we can see the 5 is the larger one. So we can see on the first 95 and 45 thousandths would be less than, which is the L, than 95 and 545 thousandths. The next one, 419, 10, 419, 0, 9, 9. Make them both look the same. Then start looking at digits. 4 is the same, 1's the same, 9's the same. Oh, the 1. It is the larger one because 1 is larger than 0. So we can see here that this one would be greater than. And the last one, 5 1s, and I'm going to go ahead and put the place values in here so we can do it properly. This is 5 1s and, which is our decimal, 8 tenths. Next one says 58 tenths. Well, if I put 58 tenths in here, I know I can have 2 of them in there, so it's going to be 8 and 5, which shows they are. On G, we have, let's put the place values on there. First one says 36 and. We know and means decimal points, so it's 36 and 9 thousandths. We have to put the placeholders in there. Second one says 4 tens. Well, 4 tens means 40, because 4 tens would be 40. So if we look at it, our first digit shows that 4 tens is going to be greater. So that means 36 9/10 would be less than 4 tens. H, 1 10 100, 1 tenth, 1 100th, 1 1,000th. And it says 104. So 104 and 12 hundredths. So it'd be 12 hundredths, which I know I have to split it out. The next one says 104 and 2 thousandths. I'll put 2 in the thousandths, and then I have to put placeholders. Now I'll put a 0 over here to make them all look the same. When we come across, 1s are the same, 0s are the same, 4s are the same. Oh, the 1 is larger. So we can see that 104 and 12 hundredths would be greater than 104 and 2 thousandths. On I, 158 thousandths. Okay, so here's 1s, 10s, hundreds, tenths, 100ths, 1,000ths. And it says 158 thousandths. So it's all going right up here, 158 thousandths. Put my 8, my 5, my 1. And I'll usually put a 0 because it's less than 1. Second one says 58 hundredths. Now when we place a 0 to compare them, 0 is the same. Oh, 58 hundredths is my larger. So 158 thousandths would be less than, because the L, 58 hundredths. Now this time we're going to be arranging the numbers. Increasing means from smaller to larger. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all our digits, we're going to place them in the place value charts, and we're going to compare them all together. Now the first thing, we want to make them all the same, so let's add 0 so they're all the same. We look at all 4 and we have 8s. They're all the same. Zeros, go to the next block. Now we're looking for the smallest one. Well, the 0 is going to be the smallest one, so that's our number 1. So we can go ahead and say that we know that 8.008 is our number 1. Now we're in the same block, we can see our 8s right here are the next two smallest ones in this place center. So, but we have to go to the next place value to verify it. And the 0 is smaller than the 1. So this would be our number 2. And we're going to write 808. 8 and 8 hundredths. Now that means the other one we were comparing is going to be our number 3, which is 8 and 81 hundredths. And we'd leave our last one, which is 8 and 09 hundredths. Now let's place a 0 in here so we can see. Oh, not an 8. And we can see now that if we compared them, 8s, the 0s, okay, this 0 is smallest, and we have our two 8s, which is 0 and 1, the smallest, and then a 90. So it kind of checks. Let's try it again with a larger number. This time we have 14,204 thousandths, 14 and 200 thousandths, 14,240 thousandths, 14,210 thousandths. Once again, it says in increasing order. So that's smaller to larger. So let's see. They are the same. They're the same. They're the same. Oh, the 0s are our smallest one so far. Now I circle them so I know I'm just comparing those two first. Now the next one says 0 and 4. So this one is my smallest one. So I'm going to write 14 and 200. That means the next one I was comparing to it would be the next larger, 14 and 204. Now I'm back to these two. We have a 1 and a 4. So the 1's going to be next for number 3, which is 14 and 210 thousandths. And that leaves 14 and 240 thousandths as our number 4. Now this time it says decreasing order. So that means larger to smaller. So it doesn't really change what we're doing too much. We're going to go ahead and fill out our place value chart. All right, so now we're looking for the largest number. So that's 4s, 3s, 9s, and our 6 is our largest number. So that's our number 1, 439 and 612. Now, if we look in the same place value, we have a 2 and a 2. So we know one of those is going to be our next largest, but we have to go to the next place value for it. And we have a 6 and a 1. So this is going to be our number 2, which is 439 and 261. And this one makes this one our 3, 439 and 216. And then that leaves the only one left is our 4, which is 439 and 126. And you can see from greater to smallest. Number 4, James measured his hand. It was 0.07 meters. Jennifer measured her hand. It was 0.16 meters. Whose hand is bigger? Okay, so we're going to create a quick place value chart. And the nice thing about a place value chart, you only need to draw it as much as you need it. And I'm going to stop at this point because this is where my decimals are going to be. And one more. So we know this is 017 and 0165. We're going to place our 0 in to make it even. We see these are the same. These are the same. Now, this is where we have different numbers. And the 7 is larger. So we know that James's hand was larger. The last one. In a paper airplane contest, Marcel's airplane travels 3.345 meters. Salvador's plane travels 3.35 meters. Jennifer's plane travels 3.3 meters. Based on the measurements, whose plane traveled the farthest distance? Whose plane traveled the shortest distance? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so first off, Marcel said she did 3 and 345. Salvador's did 335. And Jennifer's did 3.3. Now it says it wants to know who did the longest and then the shortest. So we're going to have to compare. The longest will be the longest, the largest number. So first thing, we're going to place zeros on them so we can compare them. In the first column, in the ones, they all had 3, so we go next column. The tenths, they all had 3, so we go to this column. And we can see the 5 is the largest. So Salvador's plane flew the furthest, and as we can see down here, Jennifer's traveled the shortest distance.